When guests came over, they always noticed the smell. Something old, almost medicinal. We used to blame it on the age of the house, and after they took off their shoes at the entrance, they usually stopped noticing it. 3 years on, I still notice it. It reminds me of childhood hospitals. Paul got the bigger room because he moved in first, and I found the place through an online ad and took the other. We had a kitchen, a shared TV game zone, a dining nook, and a covered patio. Paul and I got along, though we came from completely different worlds. His was full of constant posturing around friends and never-ending online games. Mine, I guess, was lonelier. Somehow we worked out a routine. After work, we'd often cook dinner together and play games late into the night. I liked RPGs. He preferred co-op shooters, which I joined reluctantly, because he'd get irritated and yell if I wasn't calm enough, then glare when I reminded him not to get worked up. He used to blame it on his fat fingers. The window overlooked the parking lot, where every other week at 7 a.m. a garbage truck would roll in, to the annoyance of the tenants with bedrooms facing that way. Mine included. I guess these are important details. I'm describing my life as it was. This is the place I live, and where I am now. The ordinary little things. I need to tell you them so they balance out the heavy truth I'm about to dump here, hoping for sober advice. I just need to lay it all out, so maybe you'll understand. You won't, but I'll at least try. Hey Ollie, check this out, I remember Paul saying. I was slurping cereal and looked up from my phone. What's up? I said. They look new. I got up lazily and looked out the window. Huh? What, where? Those sneakers. I'm grabbing them. Paul dashed out and soon appeared in the parking lot. I watched as he crept toward the dumpster in his loafers and grabbed the bright white sneakers, grinning up at me as he hurried back. The door banged shut. I stretched my back as Paul strolled in, holding the shoes in one hand and snapping his fingers with the other. Score! They don't even smell, I said. The sneakers were completely white and, for something found at a dumpster, absolutely pristine. Smells like roses, he said. You think they'll fit? 11, baby, he beamed. Some luck. Now we get to the part where I don't expect you to believe me. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't lived it. My family has had its share of tragedy. My little brother was born with a condition that meant dozens of surgeries before he could even walk. Hospitals became a second home. Iodine soap, a familiar salve, plastic-wrapped food and tin can juice for family dinners. I went with my parents every time, and each visit seemed to drain color from my dreams, whimsy from my imagination. I didn't grow up overnight, but my childhood wasn't for children. I learned that life is limited. Choices are pragmatic and usually dull and smelling of disinfectant. Let me try them on, Paul said. He sat on the couch, pulled off his loafers, tried on the right sneaker, then the left, and disappeared. The moment both shoes were on, Paul was gone. Not in the usual sense. I mean, gone without a trace, like he'd never been there at all. No vision or sound to accompany the vanishing. He was there, and then he wasn't, as if being simply ceased. I stared at the couch cushion slowly returning to its shape where Paul had been. I was still standing, but had backed into the wall, palms pressing against it, bracing like the room might collapse or gravity might flip. What felt like eternity was maybe a minute, and then Paul reappeared, sitting on the couch, gasping, holding one of the sneakers. His eyes roved around the room, wild, until they met mine and locked in, making me feel like prey. Fuck! I screamed. Fuck! He whispered, steadying his breath, then shouted, his eyes wide. Fuck! Ollie! What? I shouted back, shaking. What? Blood rushed back into his face, his eyes narrowed. Bro, he said, you won't believe it. I didn't believe it. He said he'd ended up in a forest. Said it was hot and humid, with the sounds of insects, birds, and dripping rain as real as here. He had trouble recalling stuff at first, from the shock, but once we both calmed down, he insisted he'd really been there, in tropical jungle, standing on wet black ground, watching sunlight scatter through the canopy. He said the smell was exquisite, a word he'd never use. You mean you were in the Amazon? I finally asked. No idea, bro, he said. Maybe the Amazon. No clue. Borneo? I don't know. Rainforest, man. The real deal. Okay, I said. By now he had removed the other sneaker, the pair lying before us on the rug. Paul glanced at me, then at the sneakers. Yup, he said. Your turn. Why would I said. You have to. He grimaced, reading my face. You want to, Ollie. Trust me, you want to. He was right. Once I calmed down, I realized I did want to try. They should fit me too. I bent, slipped one sneaker over my sock. I took the other and paused, glancing at Paul. What do I, do? I asked. Oh, right. Listen, just take them off, just like I did. And bam, you'll be back. Just take them off. That was our pre-jump talk, right before I slid on the second sneaker, and the apartment vanished. No clues, sounds, no visual effects. Just there, then here. Where was here? It wasn't a forest, like Paul's. It was a field. I felt the sun on my skin. Distant hills. And, was that a highway? A semi thundered past. Buildings, far away. I bent, yanked the sneaker off, and suddenly I was back, in the apartment, facing my roommate, whose body language was jittery with excitement. Dude, he yelled. You straight up vanished. He nodded excitedly, his head and neck bobbing like to a beat, eyes wide, unblinking. Dude, you gotta try, he said. Trust me, it's like nothing else. And I did want to try. I realized at once my pulse slowed, and my head cleared. Curiosity, thrill, something primal under the skin. I bent down, grabbed one sneaker, slid it over my sock, picked up the other, looked at Paul for reassurance. What should I, do? Oh, right. Just take the sneakers off, just like I did, and whoosh, you'll be back. Just take them off. That was the exchange right before I slipped on the second shoe. The apartment simply vanished. No warning, no sounds, no fading. Just here, then there. Where was there? This time it was a field, not a jungle. Sun warm on my skin. Distant hills. Was that a highway? I heard a truck rumble past. Far-off buildings. I bent down, tore off a sneaker, and instantly found myself back in the apartment, opposite Paul, his body nearly vibrating in anticipation. Dude, he cried. You just disappeared. Jesus, I said. Christ. He bobbed his head and neck energetically like trying to shake out disbelief. Eyes still huge. Crazy, right? Jungle? Not jungle, I said. More like prairie. But there was a road, a big truck, buildings in the distance. No way. I want to see those buildings, he said abruptly. Yeah, but I came back before I could tell where I was. It was insane. Insane, he echoed. Insane. We both looked at the sneaker in my hand. There it was, the secret. A pair of magic sneakers that could whisk us away. Not unheard of in fiction, but I'm telling you, it happened to us. Paul landed in a forest. I ended up on a plane. We found those sneakers at the dumpster, put them on, and got whisked away instantly. It didn't stop there. Could it have? Would you have stopped? Paul went again. When he came back, he said he'd been on a hill overlooking a valley and saw a whole city he couldn't recognize. I went again. Ended up on a cold, gray, sandy beach, wind biting. Then a couple more times each. One time I was dropped on a frozen mountain, and when I came back, Paul said my hair had snow in it. Next, Paul went, then vanished for a full 5 minutes. When he returned, he was clutching half a dozen mangoes to his chest. What the hell? I said. Mango grove, man, a real one, trees everywhere. They ripe? We took a teleportation break to eat slices of fresh mango. We compared notes and made a deal. Destinations were random. No matter if we walked around or just sat, every time, we returned to the apartment. We'd seen cities, so there must be people. Definitely Earth. But when? Had either of us noticed anything that didn't fit 2025? No, and no sign of anyone nearby yet. Maybe we should stop, I remember saying. Take a break. Neither of us wanted to. We had the whole day ahead. We took turns jumping, learning more each time. We figured we'd eventually land in cities. A couple times each, we'd spotted settlements, But since we'd agreed to limit the jumps to a single minute each, we never had time to reach them. Paul grumbled about that rule. We also figured that since we rarely hit cities, it was just because most of the planet is still wild, farmland or water. We jinxed ourselves. Perfectly. I slid on the second sneaker and instantly blacked out. Not numb, not senseless. The cold shock was shattering. I gasped. I could taste because when I inhaled, my mouth filled with icy salt water and my breath seized up. Not blinded, yet it was pitch black, plunging night and then utter darkness underwater. Not deaf, but wind howled, giving way to the churning, hollow drone of freezing water in a ghostly depth, tearing at me from every side. I flailed, panicked. Move. Swim, swim, I urged myself. Gotta breathe, obviously, but I can make it. I reached out, and just as my lungs spasmed for air, my freezing hand wrenched off a sneaker, and I was suddenly on all fours in the living room, choking and puking salt water onto the rug. My whole body shook. I was soaked through. Paul thumped me on the back. My ears rang, adjusting to sudden warmth. Paul brought some water, clapped me on the shoulder. I think I was in the ocean, I croaked. Paul just stared, then nodded. He looked shocked, and did I sense jealousy? Later, I sat in a robe, wrapped in towels and facing a roaring space heater. I told him about the storm, the darkness. Already, within a few hours of our adventures, we'd landed in darkness a few times. I told him about the waves I couldn't fight. We've got to be careful, I said. Enough for today. We agreed to keep the sneakers in the living room and only use them together. The rest of the evening was spent talking. Not believing, but convinced. Planning. We decided on a jumping pose. Sit with knees up, one leg crossed over, both hands gripping the second shoe, just in case we needed to yank it off in a hurry. We thought about the rest. We'd wear wetsuits and fins, a mask, maybe even an air tank, since being thrown into water seemed likely. In the end, we settled on buying a big plastic tarp at Home Depot to lay on the floor, and a basic life vest, just big enough not to get in the way on land. At night, sleep wouldn't come. No matter the fear, those sneakers were changing my life. I shivered with excitement, forced down the dread. The next morning, we both called in sick to work, naturally. Then we sat in Paul's car and went shopping. Just an hour. When we got back, we spread the new tarp where the rug had been. Rug propped up outside to dry on the terrace. The life vest was small, made for kayaking, stylish, minimalist. We also bought a small knife, some beef jerky, a headlamp, a length of sturdy rope, and some bug spray. The vest had pockets for all of it. We decided to put my phone in there too. It handled water better than Paul's, and my international roaming rates weren't so insane if we somehow landed where there was signal. We wanted photographs and video. Mostly, though, the phone was for timing, so we agreed to up the limit to 5 minutes. Later, 10. We ate a huge breakfast. Hash browns, egg and sausage sandwiches, wickedly strong coffee. Adventure time. By noon, one corner of the living room looked like a naturalist's collection. Each jump added something. A rock, a branch, a flower or clump of grass. Dirt, sometimes trash. It was striking how seldom we landed near people, but how often near garbage. It became obvious we were being tossed all over the world. Candy wrappers with Chinese characters. A bag with Tamil writing, according to Google Translate. French, some other languages we hadn't worked out. On one jump, Paul was gone more than 5 minutes. I started worrying. His phone rang, and I grabbed it. Ollie lit up. I answered. Paul? I said tentatively. Bro! Paul yelled. The reception was crystal clear. Paul! I cried, jumping up and pacing the room. Paul, where are you? Not sure, but I've got bars, dude, so I'm calling. Any landmarks? What's the climate like? Pretty dry. I think it's a desert, but I see power lines. Must be a tower nearby if there's signal. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to calm my thoughts. Sky's clear, he said. Could you be out west? Take a photo. I'll try to reverse image search it. Or wait. Just open maps. I downloaded some offline regions last night. Hang on. A few seconds passed. Nope. Just calls, no data. GPS says I'm nowhere, he said. Shit. Yeah. Hey, Ollie. What? He popped back in almost exactly where I'd been pacing. We crashed together onto the tarp. We howled with laughter. When we sobered up, he showed me a couple of snapshots. GeoGuessr would be jealous, I said. What? It's this game. Google Maps shows you a random street view and you guess where it is. Closest wins. Used to play it in the office. Good idea, Paul said. We set up a map and called it Jumping Jimmy's. Then we ran reverse image search on one of Paul's pics from my phone. Nothing perfect, but some close matches. Maybe this is it. Red sand, Saudi Arabia. I said. But look at that rock. Super unique. Would have noticed that. What about this? Devil's Desert? Not enough sand. Namibia? Nah. Wait, look, Paul cried. What's that place? Oh, looks close. Says Atacama, Chile. Yeah, that's it, for sure. Tag it. We picked some icons and marked confidence percentages. About 90% for Atacama Desert, green circle. My heart soared. I'd always loved traveling, but now I was touring the world incognito. Paul and I were ready, well-equipped, full of adrenaline. It seemed like nothing could go wrong. If only we'd stayed focused. By evening, our map was studded with colored pins, dozens of photos. Paul grinning next to a beaming shepherd on a mountain road somewhere in Kyrgyzstan. A group waiting at a bus stop in a Colombian town. Paul envied how often I landed near people. Man, you always get the cool spots, Paul said. Me, trees and hills, every damn time. The tarp in the living room had collected puddles, water jumps. Paul wanted to land in a city, but I wasn't ready to risk running out the timer to get there. I figured if Paul was patient, eventually luck would drop him in one. And finally, it happened. Tokyo. Biggest city on Earth. Over 30 million people. No surprise it was the first truly urban landing, or at least the first for me. By now, I'd stopped having any expectations when slipping on the second shoe. In the blink of an eye, I was tossed onto a narrow street, shockingly calm and mostly empty, and stared at the skyscrapers blazing in the sun. Japanese signs, English street names. I'd actually been to Tokyo before, so it looked vaguely familiar. Only, I probably didn't look familiar to the locals. Foreigner, sitting in the middle of a Tokyo street in a safety vest loaded with survival gear. One shoe clutched. Yeah, weird. I stood up and moved aside for a chubby delivery truck. Smiled awkwardly at a staring couple. Pulled out my phone. 0904 left on the timer. Then it hit me. The sweet smell of frying tempura. There was a tiny restaurant, white cloth norin hanging over the door. I was in Tokyo. Japanese food is my everything. I couldn't resist, right? No way to control where you land. Who knows if I'd ever get dropped in Japan again, in Tokyo even. I felt my chest pockets. Nothing. No cash. I should have packed cards. But people pay cash here more often. No way was I going to carry every currency in the world, and hunting down a money exchange shop was out of the question. Then it hit me. I could actually eat and disappear. No running required, no risk. I brushed aside the norin and stepped in. Konnichiwa, hello. Sat at the counter in the narrow shop, sheepishly took off my vest and hooked it under the seat. Pointed and ordered tendon. The smell, the crispy battered veggies and shrimp, the umami. Heaven. Just as I remembered Paul, I looked down at my timer. Already 10 minutes over the limit. Shamed and flustered, I grabbed my vest and ducked low under the counter. Yanked off the sneaker. Shit! Paul screamed. Where the fuck were you? I thought you were dead. We said 10 minutes. He sniffed. What's that smell? I begged pardon, hands on his shoulders, settling him on the couch. Calm. Calm. Fried sesame oil, I said. I was in Tokyo. I had tempura. Tempura? Is that fried stuff they put on sushi? Kinda, yeah. You said, Tokyo? The city? You ate in the city? He was beaming. Yeah, I said. Jumping Jimmy's, he yelled, and I echoed, laugh out of habit. City, lucky bastard. Smells awesome. You didn't bring anything back. Shit, sorry Paul, didn't even think, as soon as I saw the time. Hey, it's fine man, I want to go to a city too. Paul stared at the vest but was really looking through it, lost in thought. I couldn't tell if he was genuinely happy for me or jealous. Some facial expressions are hard to read. You'll get there, man, I swear. The city's coming for you. For a moment, his irritation was visible, then gone. Yeah, he said flatly. We jumped a few more times, and Paul finally said he wanted a break. The jealousy, it turned out. He sulked off into his room, barely saying a word. I decided to let it go for now. He'd come around. I made myself a sandwich, sat and stared at the chaos in our living room, the souvenirs, laptops, wet tarp. Then I went to my room, and to my surprise felt bone-tired. The jumps must have been exhausting in ways I hadn't noticed. I fell asleep, letting the dark take me. When I woke up, it was already dark outside. I'd slept all day. The clock read 9 p.m. The living room was unchanged. Paul's door was shut. My mouth felt dry, so I poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter, staring at our mess. And then, I saw it. The sneakers were gone. I set down the cup and hurried to Paul's door, knocking. Paul? You awake? I opened the door. Paul? He wasn't there. I stormed back to the living room, ransacking the couch cushions, searching for the shoes, and felt like I was reliving a scene I'd already seen, like I'd watched a horror movie and now had to play the character. I knew he'd taken them. I knew he'd jumped. The life vest was on the floor. I checked my phone in its pocket. Idiot, I thought. Left it behind. No calls, no texts. I dialed Paul and heard the ringtone from his bedroom. Moron, I said, this time aloud. How long had he been gone? I looked for new artifacts, notes, new pins on our map. Nothing. Checked the tarp. Nearly dry. Paul's car was still there. I opened the apartment door and looked out into the hall. Empty. That bastard, I muttered. Put the shoes on and just split. I sounded more like Paul than myself. Silence thickened, heavier than usual, wetter from all the salty water. Suddenly, our pile of souvenirs looked grotesque. I grabbed a garbage bag, stuffed the whole lot in, cinched it closed. Powerless. Hours passed. By 3 a.m, exhaustion hit. My eyes burned. I drank water and collapsed into bed, finally letting myself drift off. Beep, beep, beep. Half awake and terrified, I relaxed when I realized it was just the trash truck. Metal claws clanged, flipping the bin, slamming it down, then rolling away. I stumbled out of bed. 7 a.m. Nothing had changed in the living room. Paul, still gone. Missing for hours now. I made watery oatmeal, added raisins, and chewed slowly. Had he drowned? No life vest? Idiot. Possible. Maybe he got dropped in Vegas and would come back with stories like The Hangover. Maybe a wild animal attacked, but I doubted he'd have time to take the shoes off. Maybe he was just out there, wandering. I shouldn't have gone for that tempura. I liked Paul, but I knew how quickly his jealousy could simmer. Why hadn't I smoothed things over? 5 minutes, just 5. Paul's ego needed validation. 2 days, and we're already at each other's throats? No, can't be. It must be a misunderstanding. He just had to prove something. Don't mess with the rules, Ollie, he'd say to me. Tell yourself that, man. Left all the precautions behind, even his phone. Damn it. I chewed dried raisins. The oatmeal sat in my mouth before I swallowed. I stared at the plastic tarp in the living room. For a moment, it was all I did. Then, I was staring at the body. Face down. No shirt. Holes in the back. Pooling blood. Trickles running down his torso. White shorts. Pockets turned out. Stained. One white sneaker. Dirty. The other foot bare and muddy. Thick fingers on one hand. Crooked. Broken. The way the jump worked, it felt like the body had been lying there the whole time I was staring at that spot, eating my cold oatmeal. Like I was meant to feel guilt only once the nightmare actually arrived. Not before. Paul. Paul's body. His hair. His broken hands. The smell. Memory forced up images of hospitals in geometric patterned gowns, hands rubbing against harsh brown soap, medicinal metallic foam, burned. The smell of memory fighting the scent of death, one trying to disinfect the other, refusing to believe this could be real. This couldn't be real. He couldn't be dead. Oatmeal dribbled down my chin before I remembered to close my mouth. Suddenly it tasted like raw meat, and I spat it in the sink. Realization struck as my heart pounded, catching up to what had happened. All senses lagged behind, as if reality couldn't turn this fast, fall into horror this silently. Every breath, a gag. Every blink lasted forever. If I just waited long enough, this would erase itself. Blink and it would all be gone. I know that happens. Please, please. I write this anonymously. My name isn't Ollie, and his wasn't Paul, but I need help. There's a bullet-ridden corpse on the plastic tarp in my living room. Only one sneaker remains. The other vanished. No one would believe me. What should I do?